action cameras are wide-angle beasts, but with one simple accessory, you can turn your action cam into a macro powerhouse. In this video, we're showing you the exact gear settings and techniques we use, so you can get shots like this with any action camera. Recently, we showed you that you don't need a huge camera rig to create cinematic, wide-angle underwater videos. But there's one huge weakness where small action cameras fail. Fixed focus lenses. They're designed to be sharp from around 30 centimeters to infinity. So, if during a dive you see a tiny nudibranch and try to get close enough to fill the frame, it turns into a blurry blob. But if you stay 30 centimeters away to try and keep it sharp, your nudibranch is nothing but a tiny dot. Enter the Diopter. This is a +15 macro lens. Think of it as a magnifying glass for your action camera. It works by reducing the minimum focusing distance from 30 centimeters to around 7.5, which means that tiny nudibranch can now fill the screen in full glorious detail. But the best part? It flips, which means you can film a manta ray in wide angle, flip it over and film shrimps and nudibranchs on the same dive. We've been using this one made by Backscatter on our GoPro Hero 13, but this works for everyone. So if you use an Ace Pro or an Osmo, you can find similar lenses to get the same results. This lens is designed to work well with subjects around the size of a golf ball, but honestly, we've achieved decent results with even smaller subjects. Now, to get the best results, you'll need to know about technique. Because if you try to shoot macro the same way you shoot wide angle, your footage will be unusable. Unlike wide angle, you won't get away with using natural light or a red filter here. In fact, you'll be so close to your subject that the camera will block the sun. So a video light is non-negotiable if you want sharp, colourful results. We recommend one with at least 1200 lumens. Positioned above the camera and mounted on a stable tray. Take extra care though, tiny critters are sensitive and these lights are bright and hot, so don't blind or cook them, take the shot and move on. Next, focus. This is the tricky part. Remember that the camera cannot autofocus. You are the focus ring. The sharp zone is very narrow, only about 1 inch deep. We find that the best way to approach this is by first getting within the focus range, then fine-tuning the focus by making micro adjustments to and from the subject, whilst recording and watching the screen to judge the sharpness by eye. The hardest thing about that is that action camera screens are tiny, which can make this a little bit awkward. You often won't know if you have sharp results until you see it on a bigger screen. This backscatter lens does, however, come with a nifty focus training stick, which helps you learn this distance whilst removing some of the guesswork. Practice this on land first. Learn how far 7 centimeters is from your lens so you build that muscle memory before you get in the water. We have a few more tips for this involving camera settings, which we'll explain later in the video. Stability is essential for quality footage, but when you are zoomed in this tight, every shake looks like an earthquake. The best results will come from using a tripod, but it's not always possible to find enough space or surface to use one without harming the reef. If you're on a sandy bottom, plant your elbows in the sand, muck diving style. On reef dives, you can place a finger on a rock or a piece of dead coral. Always ensure that you check your surroundings first and never grab living coral for stability. If you can't get the shot without touching the reef, don't take the shot. Next, settings. From experience, these are the settings we find give the best results with the GoPro. But if you're using the Osmo or Ace Pro, you can apply these too. We're only mentioning the ones we specifically change for macro this time. So if you want to see how we set white balance, color profiles and stabilization for all our shots, we recommend that you watch this video next if you haven't already. First, you need to ensure that your lens is set to linear or narrow. If you leave it in wide or hyperview, you will see the black ring of the macro lens in your footage. Linear crops in and removes the distortion. For resolution and frame rate, we like to use 4K at 120 frames per second. Why? Because when you slow that footage down by 80%, it smooths out those micro jitters. It also allows you to maximize the parts of your clip that are in focus. Because often with camera or subject movement, you may only have a couple of frames that are in focus. Being able to slow this down by 80% allows you to easily find the best sections of your clip. And this is more of a personal preference, but we find that the extreme slow motion really emphasizes the details and micro movements of these tiny critters, making them appear even more epic. A word of warning though, very high frame rates need a lot of light. If your footage looks dark or grainy, drop back down to 60 frames per second. Here's one more pro tip that we use that will vastly improve your underwater workflow. We recommend setting up presets. We've got a bunch of presets set up for wide and macro underwater. It avoids having to juggle camera settings and lets you concentrate on capturing great images. Now, let's be real for a second. Is this really going to replace a $20,000 mirrorless setup? Of course not. A tiny sensor simply cannot replicate the creamy background blur and razor-sharp detail of a full-frame camera with a 90mm lens. You might notice softer corners or less dynamic range in the shadows. Personally, we're happy to sacrifice these aspects for a more portable and versatile setup. We want to encourage you to have fun and get the best images from the gear you have, and to prioritize good diving practice and respect for the marine environment over the best image quality. So yes, whichever options you choose, there will be limitations. It's all about compromise and deciding which is the right gear for your adventure. So, if you thought you needed to remortgage your house to start shooting underwater macro, think again. With a simple diopter and some patience, your action camera can capture the tiny world just as well as the big stuff. Now, we mentioned lights were non-negotiable for this, but which ones should you buy? Do you really need 10,000 lumens, or can you get away with less than half of that? That is exactly what we'll be putting to the test very soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. See you underwater.